Hello everybody. Today's project is to take all this complete interior stuff and put it in that car so that we can transform the interior from this horrible brown atrocity into this. Hey guys, it's Cobbler Bob here. First of all, this video, if you notice in that little ditty intro I said today's project, it's almost exactly 1 year since I shot that intro and I thought I was going to change an interior. So as you can see here, there's no headliner in it. So you're probably thinking, well, if there's no headliner, no steering wheel button, why are you doing an interior video? You'll see as we go, but long story short, I wound up having in case you haven't followed, taking the interior part is when I found out that there was a ton of Bondo in the roof and literal Swiss cheese, like those actually holes in the roof skin. The water was dripping down onto the floor, so I wound up tearing the whole body apart and repainting everything except the hood and the trunk lid. I put a new half floor pan in, new roof skin, 2 new A-pillars, a ton of body work. So what you're seeing here is kind of like stuff that's spaced out over a 1 year time. So just bear with me. Some of the stuff might be a little bit out of order or whatever, but there's just a ton of work, and I think, well, I hope anyway you like what I did. All right, I got some interior parts. Let me show you what I picked up today. Obviously, this is a dashboard, dash pad, whatever you want to call it. And it does have the same setup as mine, which is good. I'll explain that in a minute. But what I was looking for is black. This is an A-pillar. I don't really need that. What do you call this? The sun visor belts. I've got the rear seat belts. I've got 3 pairs. These go at the back seat. Look at these door panels, right? So that should be the passenger door panel. See, the chrome is in really nice shape. It's in good overall condition. Here's the panels for the back. You know, that's where the window crank is. This goes under the dashboard. And this too was a major find. These consoles are getting pretty hard to find at any reasonable price. I was really happy to get the correct console for this car in black as well. Obviously, these definitely need cleaned, thoroughly cleaned. Those are the side panel armrest for the rear and a rear seat. You can't really see it right there, but it is under there. You know, who's going to notice or care that there's buttons on the door panel but not on the seat? I certainly don't, okay? I'm not going for originality. I'll show you, for example, what I mean by the condition. Obviously, mine aren't black, but you see here how bad, you know, it kind of goes in like that. And you see this is wrinkled and damaged and all this, you know, is flaking and peeling off. So mine are really not in very good condition, even if I did want to recolor them. But, you know, so that saves me a lot of work. So I'm excited to get all of this stuff, nearly a complete interior. I've got to check out these seats, so let's open them up. These are the Procar Rally 1000 seats. These have side bolstering. I'll show you and explain. All right, guys, here's a couple notes on the Procar 80-1000-51 seats. Then there's a suffix L for left, you know, R for right. First tip, if you're going to do anything with these, you have to, I believe, in my opinion, leave them on carpet so you don't scratch up the feet, you know, make them returnable. They're returnable as long as you don't install them, okay? This is the big thing that I want to tell you. 2 notes. First of all, the first notes, the ones with the side bolstering, the Rally 1000 seats have these side bolsters, which are great if you know, don't care about not looking original and you like cornering. But you see, and I read this online, when I called Procar, they said they lean forward only about 15 degrees, which I think is about accurate. I'll show you, I don't think that's an issue though. You can still get in the back seat just fine in my opinion. So number 1, they don't lean forward as far. There's nothing stopping them other than this bolster hitting this bolster, right? So there's no hard stop. But the second thing is, let me show you the width on these. And I'm hoping you can see, I'm gonna try and zoom in a little bit here. So the width of the seat here, the seat bottom, they say is 10 inches. And yeah, that's about accurate. This flat part is about 10 inches, you can see there. This side bolstering is fairly firm. And I'll show you, I'm not a large guy. I'm about 6 foot 1 inch tall, about 175 pounds. But by the way, like my waist size actually measures, I have a large hips for a slender man. But I actually measure around my hips. I actually measure about 37 inches. So even if I said I measure it, like I got keys in my pocket here, but if I even tried to measure, I don't know if I can do this, but around here, I guess I would say, avoiding my keys, see that's coming around that's coming around 37 inches around my thighs. So to give you some range of, some idea, it's really snug, okay? So you can see here, I don't think it's gonna be uncomfortable for anybody bigger than me. I think it would be. One of my buddies, and is a bigger dude than me, and like, man, how, you know, I commented how snug they are, right? And he says, well, I guess I won't be riding in your car. And that actually spurred a thought with me. You know, there is some upward pressure. It's, like I said, hard to, you know, give you a full idea of how it feels, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. So I'm actually going to go return these for the XL. I looked at all the dimensions, but as far as I can see, the XL seat, the only difference is this 10-inch measurement here is 12 inches across. So let's go take these back and let's get the XL seats. There's one thing here I wanted to say out of earshot from the Treasury Department, in other words, my wife here. The XL seats, again, that are 2 inches wider in the bottom, the overall width is not wider, but those seats are 100 and, as of the making of this video, which is October of 2023, I believe $163 more. So times 2 seats, you know, that kind of hurts a little bit, right? So what does that come to? $326, I think, more for the pair. But there's one philosophy I've had. Things need to do their primary function well, right? For it to be worth the money. And with the seat, the primary function is to hold you and be comfortable, especially in a car like this that is a street car. If you're going to drive a car on the street, you should build a street car. If you're going to race the car, build a race car. In other words, be clear. Are you building a street car that you race, or are you building a race car that you drive on the street? If this is a street car, which mine is, then the comfort should be first, and the performance and things like that should be secondary, because not holding me well side to side, you know, this kind of car, you know, I don't think, you know, that's going to be a major difference. I kind of hope that makes sense. Here's another comparison. The seats on my Kia Optima LX here are extremely comfortable, even for long drives, and I'm kind of hovering above the seat. The side bolstering area, I'm not sitting on the tape measure, I'm hovering above it, but the side bolstering area starts at about 12 inches and tapers up to a little over 13. Yeah, there it is. Tapers up to 13. So at the back, it's about 12. That little bit makes a difference. Because if I go to this top part here, it's like a little less than 18. It's about 17 and a half inches. You know, so that might be a gauge there, 17 and a half, 12 at the bottom, you know, if you kind of hold that up. These are the bucket seat brackets. So this hole here is where the bench seat would bolt down, as well as here. And I'll put the part number in the description below where I got them. But this is one bracket. It goes on that side. And then you have one on this side. You see it's raised and it moves that stud. And on the back, it uses the original hole. And here are the Procar Rally. I got the XL seats. This is the seat bracket that comes with them. And you see 1, 2, they're wider in the back. You see how this tab sticks out further than that one, so they're wider in the back. You know, you got to test fit it and get it all set up. So I bolted it in. I think I have really good weld penetration there. I'm learning to use this welder. I've got the metal really clean. Power level, I'm on C setting, the, you know, ABCD, and a little over 4, between 4, about 4.25 as far as the feed, and I think it's working really well. And I saw that the base metal is getting hot too, so I'm getting good penetration. Good ground, good penetration. I found that cleanliness is a huge key. And I need to, I think that will work, even though that's got some I think the E-coating is electrically conductive. The E-coating, the black stuff, you want to scrub it off where you're going to weld. I think electricity passes through it fine, but it does contaminate the welds. That's why you see everywhere I'm going to weld, they took off the E-coating. Let's keep going. I've had trouble in the past welding, not the butt welding, you're heating up the edge, which is really easy to do. But when you're welding like this in the middle of a panel, you're heating up the middle of a panel, which just takes a lot more heat. With the 25 thousandths wire and the gas, I have not gotten good weld penetration. I still could turn the power up, but what I found is when I turn the power up,
I just get the weld just spatters out, so I think it's too small and hot. So I'm using 35 thousandths inner shield flux cord wire on this, which is what I'm used to. The flux cord is not as clean, but this is a floor. I don't really care about how clean or neat it looks per se. I'd rather have good penetration. All right, I'm really happy with the way that welding came out. They're nice and flat. Now again, this is flux cord wire. What that means is when the metal is melting, you have to have something to protect the weld while the metal is cooling. Flux cord wire uses flux like solder. It's built into the wire. And with the regular MIG welding with gas, it doesn't have flux in it and use the gas to shield, so I was using no gas to shield. But this is 35 thousandths diameter wire. This is really what I needed. Now watch, you just brush this off. And see now that ugly ash is gone. And that's definitely got good penetration. It ain't exactly stacking dimes, but it's nice flat welding. And this definitely is going to hold well. There we go. And I did a second row on there. So, I think the seat brackets are in good shape. And I'm directing, I don't know, 75, maybe 80% of my weld to the flat piece. So you're gonna melt this really easily. You need to direct the vast majority of your heat, like I said, in my book, 75, 80% towards the flat piece. And here we go. Ready to be able to bolt the seat in. All right, what I have here is the rear package tray. This is out of the back of the car here, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's horribly warped on mine. It's got a big bump in it here. I believe it got wet or something. It's like a thick cardboard material. It's not even covered in vinyl, but what I'm doing here is you can buy these, and it's got a little bit of foam on it, but this goes on the front edge, the front edge of it, the back of the rear seat. Holes cut for the speakers. What I'm doing, instead of buying this, it was like 50, 55 bucks, which is not outrageous, but because of the size, it's about $50. Freight, I just got this. This is a tempered hardboard panel from Home Depot. It was 13 bucks. And then I'll show you here in a second, but I also got some vinyl and spray adhesive. The vinyl, I think, was $10 for a couple yards of it. And the adhesive was the most expensive part at 20 bucks for some Gorilla Glue. So I've got the outline here of this thing traced on here, and I'm gonna cut it out. apologize, guys. Just missed it. I forgot to record. Anyway, my wife was out here and helped me lay this stuff on. Basically, just sprayed it down with the Gorilla Glue. Both sides. I did the back of the fabric and the back of the board. And you can see, just laid it down. We stretched it, kind of started at the middle and let it lay out. Touched it down the middle and then just smoothed it out, and I think we're in good shape. Now I just got to cut out the excess. And here is the rear package tray. The big hump on it is compared to the before. This is the before. Let me get rid of these. Like, that's just one big giant hump there. It's about the same on the other side. And, ouch. And now it looks awesome. All right, guys, here's what I'm working on right now. Here is the driver's side door panel, standard Cutlass S door panel. And it's Cutlass S, so it's even the correct trim. Now you see the door panel with the wood grain. This is for the rear portion with the wood grain. Let me show you. I took this stuff, which is a roll from Amazon of faux brushed aluminum. And I did that. What do you guys think? Cut it to shape. I removed the emblem, obviously, and put it back in, but I really like it. I think it goes well with the color of the wheels. You can see the wheels there, right? Silver on the wheels, silver steering wheel, seat belts are silvers, the same kind of tone as well. And there's the rear seat portion. This took me a couple tries to get it to actually work. There's, I think, a couple little techniques that I'll share with you that kind of helped. So just, obviously, I cleaned it off with Windex. So now that I've got it cleaned off, fairly flat, I'm gonna have the green. I gotta watch which way I want the green. You know, I want the green left to right. And I'm kind of just trying to tack it down in the middle with my thumb, right there in the middle. Get the grain oriented horizontally for the most part, you know, with the direction I want to go. Trying to keep the edges off a little bit. And then I'm just going to press it down here towards the end, remove the paper, and then press it down the middle. Now here's the technique part, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this stuff back. I can touch here because this part over top of the chrome is going to get cut off. So what I found is that I'm going to just roll it into that corner. Get it off the chrome, roll it into the corner. Press down and roll it into the corner. I found that that works pretty well. And then use my fingernail to press it in. At first I tried to kind of use the knife to press it in and it would just cut it. You know, it would tear it and cut it in the wrong place. See, otherwise here, if I just did it like this, do you see how it's bridging? And it's gonna miss and you're gonna have a gap. So, pull it back, roll it in. See, and now you have a nice tight corner that you can cut. Now I can take my sharp utility razor. You want a nice smooth cut and I want to angle it. Don't stand the blade up, angle it so it cuts through cleanly. And what I'm doing, let me remove part of this, is a technique with a knife too. See where the trim is? Imagine this plastic was over top. I'm trying to get the knife underneath the lip of that chrome trim there at an angle and kind of pushing up, just slightly up on the blade
twisting the blade down, but pushing a little bit up on this tip because I want the edge of this knife to stay under that chrome trim as I go all the way across the workpiece, if that makes sense. So that way I know I have enough material. I'm pushing up with my fourth finger here.
Are you gonna wash these?
I did. Yes, I need to wipe them down again. I'll get them all wiped.
They're really dirty.
No, this is not really dirty.
This is really dirty. It's literally brown on the inside, Dad.
Yeah, it's hard to get it clean.
Like, yeah. There. That's
Yeah, then when it dries, it'll be like still dirty.
Why?
You'll see. Now here's my next mission. The gauge layout on this car is, I can only describe it as absolutely awful. And I'm trying to hold the camera at right about the place where what you're seeing on the camera is what I would see in real life. And it's probably about there. And there's nothing in this one. This is a dummy. There's literally nothing in it. On the rally pack, I think you'd call it. But anyway, this would be a tick-tock tack clock in the middle with a tachometer on the outside. And it's kind of covered. So what you have is, even if there was a tachometer there, I would see about that. So the usable range, without me looking around it or seeing with one eye, I wouldn't see it. So you see the aftermarket tack down there is very small. So what I want is, I want to end up with, I want this speedometer, factory speedometer, moved over. And I'd like the tack to go right there. And then I also want water pressure, water coolant temperature and oil pressure gauges. Like here, these came with the car. That's oil pressure. And on the right, there's water temperature. This gauge is about worthless. I mean, it's graduated terribly. It's tiny. And by the way, this is the line of sight. So you actually have to take your eye all the way. There's my dog. Take your eye all the way down there. And look how small it looks from up here. It's horrible. Worst gauge layout of any vehicle I've ever owned. So I'm going to fix this. Let me show you my ideas. The fuel gauge is what's really critical from this. Obviously the speedometer, and then you see the dummy gauge. So let me show you what I want to do, because the good part is, this is really, I think this metal is just grounding, right? But it's kind of mounted independently, if you can see here. In other words, these are not connected together. This doesn't do anything. These are not connected together. So as long as I have them grounded and mounted and still have the dash, mounted to the car, I think I can kind of move these really wherever the heck I want, is my idea. So this is a Stewart Warner gauge, and this is, it's number 531cc. And this is called their green line, I believe it is, the green line tachometer. But the reason I chose this is, if you see the font style, the numbers are narrow and tall. These are narrow and tall. You could also see that the center obviously is silver there, right? The center is silver, center of this is silver. And also you have different ones where, like, some of them, the aftermarket ones, they'll have tall, narrow letters, but the numbers will kind of like, turn. You see in mine, the letters are all, standing vertically. So this is the most similar. There was only two of them that were even, like close in the ballpark like this. So the inside diameter of this hole measures 3.6 inches. And the OD of this gauge measures 3.55, something like 3.56. So a little over 3.5. Although it says on the website and on their stuff, they call it 3 3/8. So I guess that's a nominal size, because they're not counting the outside of the bezel, but the outside of the bezel is like 3.55 inches. So there's a little bit,
you know, space to make up there. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but I think it will still fly, because I think if I go something bigger, there's nothing this style. I mean, maybe I'll look one more time, but you know, there's really nothing this style, or it's just way too big. So that, you know, if you can imagine that being there, and then if I can move this way over, move this over, then I can get, I'm going to show you here, I'll just show you a rendering that I did of what I want this to look like. Okay, so this makes the part unreturnable, but I took it first a small screwdriver. See this bezel, I was trying to figure out how the bezel was attached. Twist, twist, twist. Now that I've got a gap in there, I'm taking a putty knife here, because the putty knife is blunt. All right, there we go. It's off. So now that I've gotten the bezel and the glass and this ring off, I'm going to show you a couple things. First of all, here's the stock lens portion from that dead spot. And of course it's plastic, you know, and I think I even scratched it trying to remove it. But this, what do you get when you buy a $240 tachometer? You get an actual piece of glass, number one. And this is not plastic. This is actually steel, and it's got a, you know, gasket on it there. So pretty impressive quality. This ring, I know what this does, and I knew it before I took it off. This plastic ring, you see, this is the light, and that's going to cover it up. So in essence, I'm trying to make the gauge bigger, you know, so I'm not sure what I'm doing. I'm kind of figuring this out as I go. I loosened these two screws, two tiny screws, and there's 4 nuts. I removed the nuts, and there's little star washers there as well. This should, I believe, I thought the whole thing would pop out. Here we go. All right, now we've got it apart. All right, now we're cooking.
Here's one terrible job, which is removing and reinstalling a dashboard. Now, remember when I did this, I had no idea the car had rust on it. All this stuff is happening here before the bodywork, so I thought I was going to put it back in right away. I was really stupid, and I didn't mark stuff hardly at all. Pay a lot of attention to where things come apart. Only saving grace was I did video some of it. You know, said this goes here, that goes there.
I'm taking off this screw to release the wiring harness. This plug went into the dummy lights, you know, the idiot lights, the coolant light and stuff like that. This plug here went into this, which is the headlight circuit. Now I just got to get the rest of the wiring harness loose. It looks like there's a strap here attaching the wiring harness to the dash. And we got another attachment point right there.
So some of that I did catch. Climate control, a lot of the vacuum hoses were already disconnected. That wasn't as much of a disaster as I thought. I did find some vacuum wiring routing diagrams online from the old manuals from these cars. One of the keys to this is just figuring out where all the screws are that release the dash from the, you know, the steel portion of the car. You just have to go slowly, as well as look at if you have one that you're swapping in. That was a big key for me, was flipping it around and seeing where those studs were. Some of them are fairly difficult to get to. And then also after you've got those out, you can see obviously the dash is kind of flipped down. One of the next keys is releasing all the wiring harness. And then I would try and mark or take pictures of where those screws go, because once you have that off, it's hard to tell where they go back on, you know, where the wiring harness is mounted and whether it goes above or below the gauges. So, last thing I did not do well is I did not bag the screws. That's something I should have taken much more care on. Lastly, one of the other things that made this really difficult for me was that a lot of the HVA system was missing and I didn't realize it. So I'm working with a car that had actually parts missing, and I've never seen how this car was put together because this is my first A body.
Here I am laying out the console and Hurst dual gate shifter location. Hurst dual gate shifters, you know, did come in this A body with the, you know, the center console, but I don't know how the factory did it, but you do have to modify the center console to fit around the shifter, and I'll show you that in a second. What I'm going off of here is these instructions that I pulled off of the internet, and all these directions are basically coming off of, I highlighted it green, and that is labeled as the floor pan seam, which on my car, there's not actually a seam. Both halves of the floor pans have been replaced, but it would be this ridge right here is what that seam is. And basically they're showing 1.75 inches forward from that to the bracket that would hold down the front of the console. You can see it's not touching it there. And then 11 inches back for a 1-inch diameter hole for the cable. And that's hard to read, but that says, what does that say? 25 3/4 inches to these bolt holes on the shifter bracket. And 25 points, yeah, that's 25.75 inches. And then 33.5 inches to the back brackets. So I have those spots marked out here on the floor with some tape. Now if I just lift this whole thing up, there's that, where that seam would be is right here. I did already verify that earlier. You can see that little plus mark for the center of that. Might be a little bit more like that. This is where the shifter cable, now remember, this hump here was moved back that far. I think that's a little over 2 inches. It still works out though. This spot here is where the brackets will go. That's where the hole would go. And then this is where the rear bracket hole, I believe, is going to go. So what we have here, what I believe is going on is, my friend Ken has already done this, and I'm going to verify this with him again. He's already told me this, but I think I have to cut out, I don't remember how much of this, but I do have to cut out a bunch of this. You can see those 2 holes right there. 1 hole there, 1 hole there. Those 2 holes should line up with these holes. So for those holes to line up, you know, basically this whole shifter has to move over. So now I've got, yeah, those holes are approximately lined up. But you can see the point is, this surface needs to drop down about 3/4 inch or so, and it cannot because this plastic is in the way. And also right now the shifter is to the right side of the gate. There's, you know, more gating there to the left, which it can't go over because it hits this. So this part clearly needs to be cut out. And then that also should mean this back hole, there's a hole in the back here, which actually you can see there, it does line up. So that's where that would go. So I think I need to start cutting here. I want to do this carefully though. So I believe it needs to be cut across there, down there, there, and across there. And I think that hole and that hole are also, yeah, need to be gone. That entire, everything below this, I think needs to go. That was a little frightening. This part has all been cut out. And now we can see that hole, those 2 holes. This one's not quite sitting down flush, but we're almost there. And this bracket down here is pretty close. It's not in the right spot exactly, but that bracket down there. And now this bracket, I know you can't really see it, but this bracket. So it's all fitting now. Ken also mentioned that we do have to cut a slot because this top plate, I guess you call it, has this rib sticking out here, and that rib indexes down. So you have to basically cut a slot from here to here to clear that rib, but I'll get to that momentarily. Holy smokes, that was the most difficult, easy thing I've ever done. So that console is finally in. See, this plate is on. It's got the little, it's like a countersunk pan head screw. It's got a round head on it. It's the right one. These screws are not really, here are not really the right ones, but I'm okay with it. This thing is bolted down. This is on. The knob is on. It's wired. The harness pops out here somewhere. This extension harness that I made is right here, and this will plug into there. It goes underneath the carpeting so you don't see it past the, you know, it doesn't stick out past the end of the console, and it comes up through the hole in the carpeting. The glove box door works. Both light bulbs are in, the pin switch is there. Oh, I need to screw the console bottom down. Let me do that. So here's where I stand. I have the gauges kind of laid out. The way it would look for me would be something like this. Just a little bit, you know, I'd be able to see the tack just fine. A little bit, the edge of it gets cut off. That's why I have down here, these are just printout pictures, life-size pictures, oil, pressure, voltage. I may swap oil temperature there, I don't know, but anyway, voltage, I guess, because they have the oil temperature, this is what Stuart Warner Green Line series that have the silver middle, just like this my speedometer does, so they kind of match, but they don't have a oil temperature gauge with that same design. So maybe what I'll do over here is I'll put the, that's the voltage up there, and then this one will be the fuel level. Maybe I'll put the voltage down here, so the, you know, two silvers, and then the two gauges without a silver middle, you know, will be at the top, and it'll be kind of a little more symmetrical, but that's the layout there. And I made this plate. It's actually 3 layers, believe it or not. So it's flat, obviously. There's a second layer, and then this is the third back layer. And this is just attached with command strips like Velcro. To this, the reason this pocket is there is so that you can get the SD card out, right? And it goes back in. 2 screws there. And this piece is, there's like an angle bracket on the back of it holding together, so 2 screws there. Those screws actually go into a piece of wood, and that piece of wood screws into the bottom of this vent. So the texture though on that plastic, that sheet plastic I have, is like just perfect, isn't it? So the radio is more centered, it was more off center, and I moved it as far to the left as I could. Although it's actually not perfectly centered, but that's as centered as I can get it because there's a mounting stud and metal work behind there, so that's as far left as I could move it. So from the driver's view, I think it's pretty good. Not sure what I'm going to put here. I think I may put the USB outlets here, or a gauge could go there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill over that. Then I'm going to, from here all the way over to here, I'm going to use this same pattern stuff here. I'm going to use the same faux brushed aluminum. So, oh, the glove box door is also on. This was not easy. Hard part of this was figuring out where that light went. I got the new innards there, but I got it all lined up, and it actually even latches, I think, kind of. Yeah. I'll work on it. You get the idea though. Need to clean that door, obviously. But it's a lot of work, and it's coming together. Climate control down there, I got to figure out how to reattach that. That climate control obviously needs to go back in there, but it's coming around.
Here's how I filled in the hole there that's left from the original radio where it has the 2 posts coming out. So what I did is I take a circular piece of ABS plastic, I don't show it here, and Duraglassed it in, so that's not just filled with Duraglass, it's a circular piece of plastic that fits fairly tight. Duraglassed over it, sanded it down, and then used some Bondo, sanded down over that. And then once you put the application, that, you know, faux aluminum, brushed aluminum over it, it all disappears.
With that going, try to get the best angle here. So with that little dummy gauge gone, there's just mounting points here, and, you know, and it's open. So this is kind of an ideal situation to be able to put the gauges wherever you want. So here's another factory gauge. The factory gauge face is about 3.75, so 3 3/4 inches. It's just a little bit too small. I thought it might look okay, but then you see this white ring, and then you'd have the cosmetic. Well, I just broke the glass. I guess I'm not using that. Anyway, so I think what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to take this tachometer itself, I already have it taken apart obviously, and reprint, I'm going to actually reprint the face of it, make something just a little bit bigger, and adapt this into this housing. So the face will look like this, right? So if I can, I need to get this printed onto something a little better than obviously just paper. It's not, you can see the black isn't black enough. And then adapt that. So what I did here was I took this, and now I've cut out the middle. I don't know if this is gonna work, but I'm gonna keep pushing through here and I'll show you what I'm trying to do. Here's what I've got as far as the gauge here. I welded over the turn signal holes. I actually left that one where the brights would be because I may use it as a shift light, so I'm just gonna leave that open. But I'm just gonna give it a little squirt of paint here. Oh, that's you know, filler there. So here's what I've got. There's the face. It is done as good as I can get. It's not perfect. This go on there. There's the guts. This is the Stuart Warner tachometer guts with the lip, with the outer edge of the bezel cut off. And then I cut around this cup here. Now I need to take the old face and use this to get the graduations in the correct spot. The numbers and the lines on the correct spot is what I need to do next. Also, these holes, that hole there, that hole on the top there, and then that one there. So 1, 2, 3 is what the old gauge used to light it. I need to light it as well. So what I'm going to do is I got some LEDs of various colors. Obviously, I'll find out which one's white or maybe yellow, but then I'm going to put the LEDs up in there because obviously there's no room for a standard round light bulb anymore because I cut the gauge out. So that's what will illuminate it. Here are the letters that I purchased. I purchased these from lettering.com. Lettering.com. You get to choose the font. They have a lot of different fonts. You get to actually choose the size. These are 0.365 inch tall. 3/8 would be 0.375. I just measured with the micrometer. I'm sorry. I measured the stock letters on this gauge with the dial caliper. And if you can see, see the 0, let's see, do we have a 0 over here? Yeah. See, for example, the 0, nice tall font. It's very similar if I can get a good lighting here, right? The 1 is slightly different. If you look at my one, I don't know if you can tell. It's white. I know it's white on a lighter background. The tip of the 1, I guess what I'm trying to say, the tip of the 1 is angled, where the factory 1, the tip is straight left to right. So it's not exact, but like the 2s, the 3s, it's pretty doggone close. It's pretty doggone close, right? The 4 style's even the same. Very, very close, right? So I think this is going to work well. So I cut them all apart. You can see I cut them off of the sheet. I cut one row out, then I cut each individual one out. And then you've got this. So it comes off with the paper on the top, and that lets you place it where you want it, and then you'll peel the top away. So I've come up with a little bit of a system here. You see I put a little dot on the napkin, the paper towel, blue paper towel there. I've got this bottom edge. I'm trying to get that horizontal. I'm eyeballing this. This hole is smaller than that one. So the purpose of that dot is so that I know I get this gauge face centered. And then I got to make sure it's, parallel. I'm kind of using this bottom edge now as the guide. I think that's pretty good. And then I got to find the actual letter, number, not letter. We're on 7. So then you take your fingernail and you just peel off the paper back. Take a pair of needle nose pliers here. You could use tweezers. The translucent paper is slightly adhesive. So then I'm kind of bringing that out. Okay, it does have to be kind of eyeballed. This one I think I need to go from the inside. I'm trying to brace my fingers. I don't need to stick it. Just enough to where I can get this thing out. And then I'm trying to see, is it pretty parallel? That's pretty good. And then do it again. You get the idea. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the hard part's going to be actually getting the pointers. So I cut this out. I should say I scanned the tachometer gauge here. I scanned it. I didn't take a picture. I put it on the flatbed scanner. I cut that out. Let's see if this is accurate looking. And yeah, I don't think there's any distortion or change in, I guess it'd be here, right? The number spacing. Yeah, it looks like dead on to me. Now I can lay this down. That line is horizontal. That's the top of the Stuart Warner logo. And now I have something to line up with. I think I might need to put a little hole in it. I'm going to cut a little hole in it so I can see the center. And then I can start putting on the little tick marks. I think, I don't know, I'm not going to put every like 200 RPM, like those are 200 RPM increments. I think I'm going to do a line for each even RPM, and then I'll do one in the middle for 500. Whew. Yeah, the zero's a little bit off, but I think it's okay. Let's see how it's going to look. You know what I'd like to do is get some black lettering. Maybe put RPM or engine speed, or, you know, write something like that on here. But man, I think we're going to be in business, huh? Pick it up, grab the edge with your fingernail, and there you just peel it off. Isn't that cool? Not bad, huh? Not too shabby. A couple updates on the tachometer. I've got the positive lead here and the signal covered because they're, you know, I don't want any arcing or grounding or whatever. That's the ground. That one's not used. What this is here, this is where the thing was going to be lit. As you can see here, I just hot glued in 1, 2, 3 LEDs. Those are wired via some 20 gauge wire because they're very, very low current. If I can find my pigtail, here it is. And let me just connect it to a battery. I've got a little tiny 12-volt battery right here. And I'll show you what that looks like. Hopefully you can still see it with the lights on. Ooh. Isn't that cool? Now here's something else. This is the bright lights. There's a little piece of this wrapper. This is like a reflective wrapper, but you can still kind of, you know, see through it. This is kind of stuff like a hard drive came in. Then I took a plastic Bic pen, you know, the body of a regular Bic pen, heated it up, opened the end into an oval. And this is the plug. That's where the stock light was. This is the light that's supposed to light this that I'm not using. So I cut it, drilled a hole in it, and then drilled the 3/16 hole to push this plastic through, then hot glued an LED. This is not going to get used right now, but I'll show you what this will be for in the future. So let's say we're coming up on 6,000 RPM-ish, and you get a shift. You get the idea, right? I'm trying to touch the leads and stay on camera. It's pretty bright. Put a green in there. I don't want red, you know, like low oil pressure. You know, I don't want, you know, anything along those lines. So that will be for future use. Pretty cool. It's coming along. Oh, I also changed out these screws from the little number 2. What were they? They were number 2. They were black Phillips is what the new gauge had in it. And I put number 2 slotted pan head in. I got those at Menards. They were like 50 cents a pair to more closely match the screws on the speedometer face. Oh, and lastly, I took the needle, the stock needle that came with this tachometer, looked like this, which isn't bad, but you can see it's angled. That is the same needle that either the fuel or fuel gauge or speedometer has. I'm not sure which one. There was a longer one, and there's a shorter one. I use the shorter one because I think the longer one is just too long. And the hole, though, in the back of this, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but the hole in the one that came with the Stewart Warner gauge on the right here is about somewhere between 38 and 40 thousandths. The one, I'm sorry, no, closer to, I'm sorry, yeah, about 40 thousandths. That one's much smaller. I don't know how small it is, but it's much smaller. So I had to drill it out. What I drilled it out with is I found a set at Menards of small drills. They're like $5 or something, $6. But they go down to 1 millimeter. So 1 millimeter is like 38 thousandths. So that's the one I used. And like, here's the drill bit compared to my finger. I had to wrap tape around it to get it to chuck up because I don't have a, you know, chuck that small, but it worked and I was able to drill that center out and now I use that indicator needle. If you're putting the speedometer glass back in, here's how it goes. First of all, the glass with 4 tabs on it there is for the dummy lights. I didn't pay that much attention to it when I took it apart. The glass that goes for the speedometer is like this. It has little can you see here at the top? Well, it's not necessarily top, but at one end and at the other end here down at the bottom, it's got points. So it's round with 2 points, no tabs. Then what happens first is you have this outer bezel here. You have this inner bezel. The blue goes towards the inside. The blue is what reflects light. I think they're trying to tint the reflected light blue, so the glass gets sandwiched in between. Now, if you notice, this is not round either. For example, here it's got a flat, flat, and then a short round and a flat, then a short round, flat, flat. So this middle flat, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flats, put the middle one at the bottom, you see the 2 tangs. And again, on this ring, it's hard to tell, but 1, 2, and then short, and then 3, and then short, and 4, 5. So put the middle flat in the bottom, middle flat in the bottom. These 2 tangs line up with those 2 tangs. And it should go together like that. Now then that, I believe, goes with the center flat on the bottom, which lines up with the center flat on the bottom of the speedometer. You've got it assembled right. It fits underneath that lip there. You see the tangs line up here on the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock position, the flat in the bottom, and the crimps, the factory crimps, were right there and right there. So you basically got it crimped in, I guess, 3 spots, plus I think those tangs may fold over. So let me get this together and I'll show you. I believe this is now assembled correctly. Nothing rattles or moves. It's crimped there. It is crimped there and there. I think we're good to go. To install the gauge, first connect the connector there carefully, then set the gauge part way in, reach behind with your hand, and you're gonna hook up, if you have it, you're gonna hook up, and if you have it, then hook up that, looks like a paper clip sitting there, and that goes on that white lever arm right there. You're gonna have to pull that lever arm out. And what you're gonna do is, you're gonna swing it out like that, and then connect that up, and then you're gonna connect the speedometer cable onto there. It just clips in, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's right up there. And you can see everything is connected there. You got to make sure that you're clear of the swinging arm there. You don't want to get wires or cables, anything clear. Speedometer cable is on. Everything's hooked up. So we've got some insulation / sound deadening on the door panel from the factory. There's just like a big piece of thick paper that's taped over this. We're not trying to seal it up. Of course, you can see there's a few spots here where there's openings, but kind of putting it over the openings, and you don't have to put the sound deadening material over the entire panel to get a deadening effect. And the material itself comes in a big box from Summit. That's the exact same stuff that I put on the back side of the ceiling. Remember, the factory roof does have, it's not this kind of insulation, but does have something adhered to the roof so that otherwise it sounds like a tin can, like an oil can without it. So it comes in sheets like this, kind of the foil on one side, and then, it's sticky back here, and you just peel it off and the entire thing is adhesive. So see that I think it helps. Here is the interior of the car. I took the seat back out and cleaned up the floors, vacuumed them, and put in, I had a few leftover pieces of this Summit Dynamat stuff. It's not officially called Dynamat, but same thing that I put on the back of the roof. That's all I have, so I'm not going to go buy it. It's pretty expensive, so I'm not going to go buy enough to do everything. But I think that should shield some header heat and noise, and I think we're going to be good to go. Now I think I can put the carpeting in, but I do have to take the center console back out.
I also repainted, I guess you could say, the door jambs, because this is just the base coat color. Scuffed it with 400, shot it with color. This is the end of the door that has a base and clear on it. The reason I did that is I just kind of messed them up. It didn't mask them off, so I got overspray on them from the primer when I was painting the car. And here it is with the clear. And I think that is much better. It kind of makes a difference when you open the door and it looks nice.
You'll never notice when I'm going 130 miles an hour through the traps. That came out really nice. Here's what it should look like. If I line that hole up, it'll be, approximately there. And no tape line, visible anyway. I'll show you the other side. There's so much glare here. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Lesson: put the vents in before you put the dash in. I don't know if you can tell where I am.
This may seem silly to some of you, but if you have teenage kids that like to ride around your cars, you need a way to charge their cell phones. So these are USB chargers with the USB A and C outlets. I got them from Amazon, and they were, I believe, 20 bucks a pair.
So here is the USB thing. So what I did is basically I measured this width with the calipers, measured that width, then I measured the width here, you know, of how deep I need the pocket to be, divide that number up by 2, set the caliper to that, like this is the dimension for the end, and just scribe a line. Now I have a box, it's perfectly centered on where I need to cut out the middle. So I am wiring up. You can see the wires there for the 2 USB ports that I showed you, one here and one on the other armrest over there. And I've got the wires. These are, I think these are 16 gauge wires that I got. 18 would be fine. And I think this is a good chance to show you the finished result. Well, almost finished. I know the headliner's not in, steering wheel button's not there, seat belts aren't installed, but it's getting there. It's really getting there. I know I didn't show you everything, like I didn't show putting the carpeting. Remember, as I said at the beginning, all this stuff that you see here is happening over about 11.5-month period with other projects in between. But I don't know if I showed you the Stewart Warner gauges. The viewing position would be, this is about what I would see from my viewing position. So the steering wheel does block a little bit, but you know, you can easily see the gauges there. You actually can see the tachometer. By the way, my intention was to move the tachometer and speedometer over to the left because I don't like that dead space. The reason I didn't, though, is because there's a housing here with a double hump on it that broadcasts light onto the climate control. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a lens right there. It just takes more surgery than I really realized, so that's going to be like a next winter project. I still may do something like that, move the gauges around, but for now, I think this is good. This thing is not very well done. It's kind of bumpy. When I pulled the fake wood grain off of here, it left glue and bumps, and I know this needs to be done, but it's like, for example, in the corner, it's cracked. So I have another one that I'm going to redo that with later, but for now, this will work. And the vents are in. That was a real pain in the butt. And here is the information center. Remember, there was a door here that kind of like, it slides up like this and reveals an ashtray. It's still back there. Like the door is obviously gone, but the ashtray housing is still there. There's a cutout there for the cigarette lighter is still there, but this is wired up. It, is a USB, 2 USB A's and a USB-C. So that's kind of cool. And this is the screen for the Holley Terminator. I really like that. Glove box door. You like that? Brushed aluminum, brushed aluminum. Door panel. And like I said, pretty much all this stuff is in. Now if I could get a windshield and a rear window put in this thing, we'd really be making some progress. Center console. That. And as you probably saw on the last episode, it does work, right? Park, reverse, neutral, drive. You can just take from park, just straight to drive. Over this side, first, second, third. And I've double verified it does actually move the transmission in each of those modes. So park. You can notice it is labeled as well with overdrive. And I relabeled that. I know in the console shift cars generally don't have the Prindle needle, but I like it, so so I can see that it's shifting, whatever. So I think this is going to do it for an episode here. I'm Cobbler Bob. Thank you guys so much for watching. You may have noticed my channel name is now just Cobbler Bob. What is my channel about? Cobbling and cars. So there's obviously the Cutlass and there's the automotive stuff. The other side is the sartorial stuff like the shoes and stuff like that. What you're going to see coming up next in this car is more than likely the Holley EFI. This is electronically controlled distributor. This is a Holley Terminator X Max Stealth that controls the transmission as well. and a lot of wiring stuff is going to be coming up soon. So hopefully you're going to see this beast run again. And sometime, probably next year, 2025, a brand new 482 cubic inch engine. Thank you very much for watching, guys. God bless and take care.